Fusebox.
Okay, this is Fusebox number 206. Have a nice trip. And you are looking a little pale. Maybe you should get some air.
Yeah, why don't you let this nice man from the Russian security service help you onto the window ledge, and you can sample the... Oops. I guess that's what happens when you go against party lines. Hello, friends, and welcome in to this, the 206th edition of Fusebox, cautiously entitled, Have a Nice Trip. And much more about that in mere moments. I am your deep discount source for highly classified documents, host Marc Rose, and joining me over there, amid the flotsam and jetsam of the glorified liquid crystal displays, is the Archbishop of Bi-Amplification, Milt Keynes, everybody.
Well, thank you kindly. Hey, tell me that. Is that box in the entryway there? Is that what I think it is?
Well, that depends, Mr. Keynes. What do you think it is?
Well, the mysterious audio noise, black box thingy.
You are correct, sir.
Wow, really? All right, so it really did show up.
It did. It did indeed. And let me fill in the various blanks here, friends. Way back in 2021, I had discovered that this little-known company that made a most unique audio tool known to, let's just call them the deep industry professionals, and known, too, by some resourceful musicians with friends in that aforementioned lofty realm of the audio community. Well, this company, Symbolic Sound, based out of Chicago, actually, and not Australia, as I had originally thought when I first heard about this thing in the early 1990s.
Australia?
Well, yeah, because all of their product names were like based on exotic animals, like the paca, for instance, which, if we are to be annoyingly accurate, Mr. Keynes, actually comes from Central and South America, right? But I digress. Most of the folks in those days that I was aware of that used this device were in fact, Australia and Europe. And so I, thought that's where it was all happening. And I later discovered it was in constant use at Skywalker Ranch by sound editors Ben Burt and Gary Wrightstrom, among others, for years. Now, these two, of course, are rather responsible for the sonic landscape of Star Wars at that time. So, if I had to describe what this thing is, I'd say that I think many folks have heard of the term a GPU, or a graphics processing unit. That's an outboard device, meaning it lives outside of the computer itself. And this box does all the video processing externally to keep the resources of the computer free to do other tasks. And it also does some pretty high-end video renderings and things like that a standard computer-based GPU could not, in most cases, do. So this thing, called an APU, or audio processing unit, is essentially the same thing. It's the software that comes with this thing called Kima that makes it truly unique.
So, I know you reached out to those Symbolic Sound folks. We covered it in an earlier episode. Wait a minute. It was, wait, let me get it here. It was episode 180, Fiddling with Nero.
Thank you, Mr. Keynes, for that valuable historical reference point right there.
Well, I aim to please.
Not always hitting the target, though, right?
Well, the aim is true, bro.
Be that as it wouldn't. So I reached out to those delightful folks, and we had decided to take the plunge on one of their devices and placed an order for one back in August of last year. Then the now too well-known chip shortage hit full stride, and these folks found themselves in a rather awkward place as they couldn't fulfill the orders they had. And
these folks are like a small company, yeah?
Right.
I mean, they're not farming out assembly to some foreign shore or something.
Oh, hell no. Yeah, these are all hand-assembled right there in Chicago, one at a time. So to make a long story just a bit longer, they alerted me to the problem, and frankly, I knew the tough spot they and countless other manufacturers were in, and said, hey, I'm just going to hang in there, so it's all good. A year or so later, I see this email from the Symbolic folks, and it says in the headline there, "Good news! Important information regarding your order and invitation to a Zoom call."
Wow, really?
Well, yeah. I mean, it really is a tight little community of users, and I gotta say, some pretty cool folks in that community.
Could one say they are cats?
Yeah, without hesitation, Mr. Keynes, without hesitation. So I click the link a few days later, and here we are, the principals of Symbolic Sound and a bunch of folks, like maybe a little shy of 100, I'm going to guess, from all over the world. And the first clue that it was going to be of international origin was that the start time of the call was published in UTC, or Universal Time.
So, wait a minute. You had to do math to find out what time this thing was starting?
Well, simple math. Really, just a browser click on a time converter, which, by the way, they had provided in the invitation. Right. Worked great for me. It was like, 11 a.m. out here.
Oh, lucky.
Yeah. So they proceeded to detail how they had spent the last year and change trying to figure out what to do during this shortage, and decided to try something a little wacky and a little new. Design a completely new box that uses the current crop of really speedy chips that are more readily available.
Good plan.
Yeah, it was. And there was a bonus, too. The new box they designed was considerably smaller than the previous model. Also, it had a wireless attachment. And, most importantly, was 2.5 times faster than the biggest configuration they had previously built.
Well, that must have made a bunch of folks downright giddy, yeah?
Yeah, indeed. And a few of them there were beta testers of this new thing, and they were quite pleased with the performance and things you can do with it.
Well, then, we'll be hammering nails and pulling cables again, but should be pretty straightforward.
Yes, always the eternal optimist, Mr. Keynes.
Hey, what did I tell you about that the last time? Like 6 months ago, when we had to do that reconfiguration for that Mac Studio stuff. Well, that went well, right?
Well, I didn't lose an eye or poke out a speaker cone, if that's what you mean.
Oh, piece of cake, bro.
From your lips to dog's ears. Yeah. Well, when we return after this brief reset, we'll be talking falling, spilling, and other misfootings of daily life.
I've heard that song before.
Fusebox. It's the show for everybody. But not everybody will like it.
Tragic Journals. Day 21. Found my nose. Well, thank you, Mr. Keynes. By the way, friends, that little twisted memento just before we came back is a new segment called Tragic Journals. And I have to say that it was most definitely inspired by an internet colleague of ours who doesn't know this yet, Frank Edward Nora, who, by the way, has a very long-running podcast called The Overnightscape, and certainly worthy of your consideration.
Yeah, hadn't he been doing that since, 1875 or something?
Well, not quite that far ahead of the trend, but far enough. I think Frank started doing the podcast thing before there even was a podcast thing, 2003. Well, in a recent program, Frank informs us that he had come to find out that back in the early 1950s, his dad and his dad's family...
Wait, we're talking Frank's dad's family, right? Not Frank President.
Correct. But to make it even more or less clear, Frank's dad is named Frank, too.
Avoids confusion.
Yeah. So Frank Sr.'s family had taken a trip to Europe, and Frank Sr.'s sister had compiled a journal at the time of all the places and people and events that had transpired during that auspicious trip of theirs. And so Frank was reading from these, no doubt, yellowed, Xeroxed pages written by, I'm going to guess, a 12-year-old gal at the time, and most likely scribbled while driving along bumpy or pothole-ridden roads and causing the penmanship to be a tad challenged at times. So as Frank was reading from these pages, often struggling to decipher the wording there, something demented and wrong naturally came screaming into my consciousness.
Was it a flying aardvark?
No. But could have been, I suppose. Yeah. So I thought, what would it be like to see the journal entries of someone struggling with terribly unusual situations? You know, horrendously atypical problems and locations.
As one does.
Yeah, of course, Mr. Gaines. So, from time to time, we'll get a taste or seven of these delightful nightmares. You know, just a little pinch.
Little goes a long way, bro.
So, a news item that may have fallen sideways due to the orange guy railings and the 11 teen indictments pending for Steve Bannon every hour. You might have missed this rather suspicious reporting that Ravil Maganov, the chair of the board of directors of Luck Oil, which is Russia's largest private oil company, quote, fell from a window at Central Clinical Hospital and died from injuries sustained.
He fell out a window. Pretty safe to say he probably died, yeah.
Well, the news likes to be thorough, Mr. Keynes. Lying horribly at times, but thorough. This unfortunate event happened just months after his company openly criticized the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, it gets weirder a bit later. Luck Oil said Maganov had, quote, passed away following a severe illness.
A rare condition called pushed out of the window-itis.
Well, it was not immediately clear whether his death was an accident, a suicide, or caused by foul play. Russian state media agencies, citing an unnamed source, reported that Maganov had been admitted to the hospital with a heart condition and had been on antidepressants. Now, Baja, a Russian news site with close ties to the police, suggested he may have slipped from a balcony while smoking, and that no CCTV was available because cameras had been turned off for repairs.
I'm so sorry, but isn't that just a bit convenient? I mean, no CCTV anywhere that's working at the moment? I mean, come on.
Well, it gets even better, Mr. Keynes. The state-run news agency TASS claimed on Thursday that Maganov had taken his own life, citing a source in Russia's security services who called Maganov's death a, quote, suicide.
They mean assisted suicide, right?
Well, here's the weirder part. Now, as you can imagine, Maganov's death this has attracted scrutiny because Lukoil was extremely rare among Russian energy companies in criticizing the invasion of Ukraine or criticizing virtually anything, publicly calling for a ceasefire. Now, this was just 1 week after Vladimir Putin announced the beginning of Moscow's, quote, special military operation. What they said was calling for the soonest termination of the armed conflict. We express our sincere empathy for all victims who are affected by this tragedy. And then they went on to say, we strongly support a lasting ceasefire and a settlement of problems through, here it comes, serious negotiations and diplomacy.
Oh, man, brave guy. He must have known they wouldn't share his opinion.
Clearly. Now, here's the nugget. 6 business people with ties to the Russian energy industry have died in apparent suicides or in mysterious circumstances since the outbreak of the war in Ukraine. None of the deaths have been classified as murders. A former top manager of Lukoil was found dead in the basement of a residence in a Moscow suburb in May. The Russian news report said the house belonged to a, quote, self-styled shaman who practiced purification rites. Investigators said the preliminary cause of death was determined to be heart failure. Well, anything that ends with death is usually heart failure. By the way, the incident occurred on the same day Vladimir Putin visited the hospital in order to pay his respects to Mikhail Gorbachev, the last leader of the Soviet Union.
Holy carp.
Yeah, right. And most of this reporting, by the way, comes from UK news publisher The Guardian, and not Hot Bag of Steaming Filth Gazette, or The Whining Times, or even that blog where I get to make up anything and call it facts.putz.
Oh, man, I love that one, bro. Kind of like that YouTube channel where that guy says shit about stuff.
Yeah, 100 million subscribers, it says.
Yeah, all named Carl.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, it just looks a bit odd on the surface, all these accidental deaths or suicides. It's really clear the Russian security services are not trying to cover it up or sugarcoat anything here. They're actually sending a very clear message. Shut up or have an intimate conversation with the concrete.
Hasn't that always been the case, bro?
Well, it seems a lot less veiled in recent times. There has always been some shadowy stuff done by shadowy folks forever there.
Well, they are not the only ones, Padron.
And speaking of disgusting roadway spills... You know, friends, I'm sure every major city, or even some minor cities, have that little stretch of highway or roadway where it just seems that gravity is working against us in some horribly awkward and maybe even a little nefarious on the side way. Hence, these items of truck spillage. Brought to my attention by the eagle eye of Jody Lorimer. Like this one right here. On August 30th, 2022, a truck crashed into a wall on I-55 in Memphis, Tennessee, creating a big mess with quite a large spill of Five Brothers Alfredo sauce. The accident happened at 4:43 p.m. and stinky cleanup continued into the night over there. Yeah. And in keeping in the culinary vein, here just a day before, on August 20th, tomatoes made quite a mess on I-80 in Vacaville, California. The truck carrying tomatoes hit the center divider and spread them over several lanes of traffic.
I think there's some kind of cosmic Italian recipe in this mess.
Yeah, one could posit that, Mr. Keynes. And then there's a little something to wash it all down with. A semi-truck overturned on I-71 in Kentucky, spilling thousands of Bud Light cans along the shoulder and median. There luckily were no injuries in that debacle.
Oh, thank dog it wasn't you who.
Oh, it would have been a very sad day for at least you.
Hey!
Then, one of my favorites. On January 14th, 2022, a truck in Melbourne, Australia, spilled, quote, animal entrails and meat waste on the M80 freeway. Unfortunately, it was 93 degrees that day, so the smell only got worse.
Oh, man.
And sort of related, on September 19th, 2021, a truck carrying goats and sheep overturned in Normal, Illinois, spilling farm animals which were running up and down Interstate 55 for quite a while. The driver and all the animals were fortunately unharmed. Local farms and an animal hospital came to the assistance of the animals and helped corral and herd them back into the trailers.
So, maybe it should be abnormal, Illinois.
They saw what you did there and are revoking your citizenship. This, a truck carrying portable toilets, spilled its load.
So to speak.
Yes, ever the razor wit, Mr. Keynes, when its brakes failed and it ran off the road in Warren County, Pennsylvania. Sadly, the toilets were full and spilled human waste as well. Nobody was injured in the accident.
I think their noses were injured in that accident, though.
And lastly, and surely at the end here, is this. On January 21st, 2022, a trailer carrying 100 monkeys on I-80 in Danville, Pennsylvania, collided with a dump truck, spilling live monkeys onto the roadway. At least 4 monkeys got loose and were eventually captured. A good thing, too, as they were not your average simian. These are cynomolgus monkeys, and they can cost up to $10,000 each, and are primarily used in medical research.
Well, it just doesn't sound like it would have been a very good day either way for them.
Tragic Journals. Day 263. The carpet is breathing again. And on that uplifting note, we'll call it a show, friends, but not before thanking our contributor on this edition of the show, Bruce Miles, for outstanding ideification. And as always, a fall-free zone of thanks to our always perpendicular Doctor of Dials, Milt Keynes, for technical assistance, so forth and so on.
Pleasure as always, and folks, if you haven't subscribed, liked, and all that sort of stuff, please feel free to do that. Because, well, we wouldn't want you to take an unwanted flight out of a window, or...
What?
Well, you know, I mean, hey, times are tough, man. We gotta drum up support and all, so I thought, a little gentle reminder...
Please, disregard that previous veiled threat from Milt. You will not be visited in the middle of the night by some uniformed officer ordering you to like and subscribe under penalty of window ledge punting.
Well, I just thought...
He'll be dressed as a UPS guy. Oh, and I'm sure you've heard by now that we have launched a Patreon page and would positively be mad with delight to have you come join us there as well.
The highly classified documents will be freely on view for all to see and share with lucky friends and family members.
That's patreon.com/The Fusebox Show.
And while your head there is just reeling from all these damn instructions, don't forget the Fusebox store. We got loads of gobs of stuff and things in that store, and you can find it at our Facebook page. And just click that Shop Now button.
Or at our webpage, thefuseboxshow.com, and by clicking the Swag tab. We do so appreciate that truly. We truly, truly do. I have been your thinking outside of the box to get inside out of the rain host, Marc Rose, saying, until our next cartoon.